something about like a kitchen table. There's something universally purposeful about a kitchen table. You know, as a kid, you think about the memories that have in place when you're at a kitchen table and you're sitting, the meals that you would have together as a family, the homework that's done there, the conversations, the board games, the laughter, the struggles, all of these things that happen at a kitchen table. How many can think into your mind when, as a kid, what your kitchen table looked like and the things that happen around the kitchen table? You know, and it's funny because, it's not so much what it looks like as it is, what it's used for. When me and Carmen, when we first got married, the first kitchen table we had was actually one of those like round patio tables, the round ones that you would have. It's a glass top, and it's literally got a hole in the middle of it. Like functionality, this was like the worst thing that we could have got. But because, we just got out of school, we just graduated, we'd looked out for work, we had moved into this community, and, we didn't have a lot of money, and so we took whatever we could get. And this is one of those things that I think it was my mom's, and she had given it to us, and she was downsizing her home. And so we took some of her stuff, and so we had this little round table, and then the hole in the middle, and you'd be eating, you'd be doing something, and stuff would always fall down this table, down this hole. Every single time you'd be picking it up, and it was such a hassle. And I remember the first time that we'd finally gone out, and our current kitchen table we own now, I think was actually the first piece of furniture that we had bought brand new. And again, we're thinking we need to upgrade our table, and we're like, oh my goodness, we're actually going to buy something brand new. We'd always either gotten used, or, with couches or things that people had given us. And so we went to IKEA, and I found like the cheapest table that they had, that they sold, because at the same time, and actually the chairs that we bought, these are the ones that we bought with it. We had this black table, and it had they had what do you call the things in the middle? The leaves. Thank you. I was thinking. Whatever, doesn't matter. So they had the leaves, and then it expands. You could have people that would come over, but we can compact it and make it small because we still have this small space we had to be in. But it was this excitement because it was like something that we'd use so often, and it was the first thing that we were able to buy that was ours, that we had purchased, that wasn't this hand-me-down. And we'd created these memories now as families sitting around the table, that we do life around this thing. We do conversation, that we play games, that we have laughter, that we have meals. But also in our home, we've also had opportunities that people would stay with us, or we would have counseling sessions at a table like this. That there were times that we had students that we were working with that were going in and out of rehab in our homes that would be sobering up at a table like this. And a community kid as well that he went home and he had, visited his family, he came back, his roommates had basically left him in the lurch and he had nowhere to live. And so we had drifters staying and memories were being made there. See, there's something about the kitchen table. There's something about what's done together. For this illustration, there's only 2 chairs, but usually a kitchen table isn't a desk. A kitchen table isn't about isolation, it isn't about one person. But a kitchen table is about community. It's about people. It's about inviting people to sit around, to share life together, as I said. And so what I want to challenge us this morning is this. Whose story will you be a part of? Think about it like this. That life is shared here, that stories are shared here. That when you invite people into your life, or you're being invited into people's lives as you sit down around the table, that not only are you sharing your life, but their life is being shared with you. That you're sharing a story with each other. And so this morning is this question that I want to ask you guys. Who are you saving a seat for? Who are you saving a seat for? Again, notice in this, there isn't one chair. There's another chair here. There's another chair here. And if it was in somebody's home, most likely that they might have 3 or 4 or 5 or 6. That the whole setup of how a table works, how a dining room or those type of tables is to share together. And so my challenge for you guys this morning, all through this morning, is this. Who are you saving a seat for? Look at the person beside you and say that. Who are you saving a seat for? Look what the Apostle Paul says in 1 Corinthians. He says, even though I am free of the demands and expectations of everyone, I have voluntarily become a servant to any and all in order to reach a wide range of people. Religious, non-religious, meticulous, moralists, loose living, immoralists, the defeated, the demoralized, whoever. I didn't take on their way of life. I kept my bearings in Christ, but I entered into their world and tried to experience the things from their point of view. I become just about every sort of servant there is in my attempts to lead those I meet into a God-saved life. I did all this because of the message. I didn't just want to talk about it. I didn't want to talk about it. I wanted to be in on it. See, Paul at this point had been challenged, he'd been ridiculed, he'd been accused by these other teachers. He'd come up and he planted this church in Corinth and this community of people, shared the gospel, they received the gospel, they're following Jesus, they're on fire, they got the gifts, they're moving around, they're moving in power, and these other teachers come in and they start undermining what Paul has been doing, and they're accusing him that, you know what, he just wants your money. He just wants your money. He's just coming in because he wants that. He's just tricking you. He's just looking for a platform. And so what Paul's doing in writing his letter, one of the things is that he's correcting the church and some of the wayward ways they're going and some of the sin that's going on there and some of this is going on here. But he's also saying, he's giving a defense. He's saying, look, I have no strings attached. What you see is what you get. And he's saying, look, I have all of this freedom. For all of this freedom. I have nothing held to me. I'm an apostle of Christ. And he over and over again talks about his Pharisee going and all the right things that he's doing. And he basically stacks up his resume and he says, but you know what? In comparison to what's going on, it's rubbish. It's nothing, he says in a different letter. But he says, even though I am free of the demands and expectations of everyone, even though I am an apostle, even though I am the one who planted this church, even though you have no right to ask of anything of me, he says, I have voluntarily become a servant to any and all in order to reach the wide range of people. See, he became a tent maker, became one of them. He didn't take the pay because this birthing this thing because of all of these accusations. He said, I'm going to go full force to that end to say, let's get it done. Let's not mix the message into that. See, he made a choice. He made a choice to prove a point, but he made this choice that he voluntarily became a servant. So with any journey, it takes a first step. And we need to make a choice. So if we go to the next slide, we want to focus on, next one. Right here. I've made this choice, even though, just like Paul, even though there's nothing, no obligation. So it's the same thing in our Christian walk. There is no obligation. See, when Christ comes, he isn't saying to us, hey, you know what? I did these things for you, but here is a checklist of things to do. That's not how it works. It's this free gift of grace and love and hope. There is no obligation in that sense. If you underperform, it doesn't mean that you're going to lose something. God is going to distance himself, or it's like your salvation, your fire insurance card is going to get revoked. That's not how it works. There is no obligation in that. You are secure in your relationship with God. But there's this interesting thing that happens. I was having a text conversation with somebody asking about a passage in 1 John about that. We're saying because Christ is righteous, that our righteousness will show our relationship to God. He's like, well, does that mean that we can work our salvation? I said, no. If you read the whole context of the chapter, He's saying, look, if you've had this supernatural experience with God, you can't walk away from that the same person. I put it like this. It seems impossible to me if you were to enter into this supernatural relationship with God or this supernatural experience with God, that you can walk away from that experience the same person. You've experienced something. You see the world differently. You start seeing things the way that God sees it. Your heart starts softening. You start having this passion and desire, this brokenness for the world, because here's the reality. As I said in the prayer before this, that we're flooding in with the presence of God. And we have something that the world so desperately needs. We need to burst open that door to be able to voluntarily. And He's not breaking down the door. He's not making rules of the list. He's not putting stipulations or strings attached. It's not an obligation. But what does Paul do? What does Paul do? He says, I have voluntarily become a servant to any and all in order to reach a wide range of people. To reach a wide range of people. But I have voluntarily, that's the first thing. Let me tell you a story. When I was in high school, I had a friend of mine who was in a grade older than me, and he lived out in a farm parcel, and down the road from him, he had a friend that he went to school with. They're in the same grade. They're really good friends, and they went through most of junior high and senior high together. My friend Peter, every Sunday, maybe it was every weekend, maybe it was the Friday, the Saturday, but he would invite his friend Brent. He'd invite Brent over every weekend through all of maybe it was grade 11 and 12, but I know for sure all of grade 12, every single weekend. And every single weekend, Brett would come up with an excuse. Now, here's the thing. It sounds kind of pushy, sounds kind of like door-to-door, evangelist type thing, but if you know my friend Peter, you know that he's the type of guy that delivers in anything. Like, I had this conversation with Lauren. She was up here earlier. I always say that if Lauren is going to correct somebody, by the end of that conversation, that person feels better about themselves. I don't think there's nothing in Lauren, who's our Kidsman director, has the ability that you have a conversation with her because she's so lifelike and she's so bubbly and she's always smiling, that even if you're in a conversation where it's like, we need to talk about something, we need to have some correction, by the end of that conversation, they feel better about themselves. It's just this, I don't know what it is, but she has that gift. There is this gift in her in that. And the same thing with Peter, that he had this authenticity, this just empathy to him, that when he would do this with Brett knew where his heart was coming from, but Brett was running. And every single week he would come up with an excuse. What Peter was doing wasn't that he was trying to convert him or coerce him. He was inviting Brett out to the table. He was saying, look, if we think about communion, we think about breaking of bread, that Jesus is inviting people to the table, to a meal, to community, to restoration. And all Peter is doing is extending that same offer and saying, come join the table. Come join this community. Come share your life, share your burdens, share your dreams, share all of these things. But week after week after week, and here's the thing, the reality is for most people, a one-time invitation to this type of journey rarely sticks. Now, that there are exceptions to this rule, but the thing is that when you think about the advertising industry, it takes 7 to 10 times for somebody to see an ad before they start to think about wanting to do action. And it's the same thing when it comes to the call of inviting somebody to the table. And how much more important do we have to offer than what a marketing agency has to offer? We hold the keys to real hope, to real grace, to real life, to real love and life transformation. See, never feel guilty. I realize there's this cultural baggage that's attached to Christianity, and there's sometimes people out there that kind of skew the picture, and I understand all of those things. I understand the fear that's part of that, but never feel guilty or ashamed of inviting somebody into your life. And a big part of your life, I hope, is your relationship with Jesus. You know, we have fall kickoff coming up. And one of the challenges said in the last couple events is, again, who are you saving a seat for? Who are you saving a seat for? And like Peter, maybe you've invited somebody already to something like an event like this. Maybe you've invited them more than once. Here's the thing, don't give up. See, what's amazing about Peter's story is that week after week after week, I can imagine that Peter got discouraged, that maybe I'm going to ruin my friendship with my friend because I keep hounding him about coming out to church. And again, let me be clear. Peter's involvement, again, in Brett's life wasn't just inviting him out to church. There was more to that. There was life together. It was inviting him to that table. There was school together. There was friendship. There was hanging out. But he was also inviting him. And by the end of the school year, Brett finally said, you know what? Okay, Peter, you know what? I will entertain this to amuse you. I will go. Whatever I have to do to get you off of my back, I will show up to church. And Brett showed up to church. He encountered God in a supernatural way, and his life was transformed from there on in. Because Peter didn't give up, because he had a perseverance, because he looked at his friend and he knew, I have a hope that you're seeking that you don't even know about. And all I'm asking is that you join me at the table. Again, fall kickoff is showing up in the beginning of August. We're going to start putting invitations on the seats. And the purpose of this invitation is a physical thing to be able to give to somebody. Ultimately, that invitation, that piece of paper is not going to get them here. It's going to be you. It's your relationship. It's your invitation. It's your prayer for them. So as we go through the month of August, start asking God, even this morning, maybe don't even wait for that invitation, start asking, maybe somebody God is putting on your mind, ask this person. And maybe you can't think of somebody, and then start praying, God, who do you want me to invite to the table? Who am I saving a seat for fall kickoff? So again, say to the person beside you, who are you saving a seat for? Jesus said, the harvest is plenty and the workers are few. The harvest is plenty, but the workers are few. If we go to the next slide, look at the contrast in this when he says he wants to reach. Paul is looking to do all these things voluntarily to reach a wide range of people. The religious backgrounds, where their life is at, if they're a hot mess, it doesn't matter. Because of the hope. It's not about how you come to the cross, but what happens after that. And that is what this message that we carry, and this is what Jesus is talking about, says that the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. It isn't that there isn't enough people out there for us to reach. There is plenty. And let me flip this for a second, because it seems like a negative sentence. But the good news is that the harvest is plentiful. There's somebody out there that's going to connect. There's somebody out there, as we look at who we're inviting into our lives, that somebody is seeking as well. Somebody is asking questions. Somebody is looking for answers, and you have those answers. And Jesus says earlier in this, it says, pray for the harvest because it is plentiful. Notice that let me rephrase that. He says, pray for the workers because the harvest is plentiful. Notice that he says, don't pray for the harvest to be plentiful, but pray for workers. And what Jesus is saying is that people need to rise up because we've been filled up in his presence. We have this hope, but we need to release it out into the world, to those who are lives. And again, what I'm saying to you isn't that maybe you're thinking to yourself, yeah, okay, Drake, you know, you've got a theology degree. You know how to share the gospel. You know what to say to that person when we have questions. You know all of these things, and I couldn't do that. Nobody's asking you. I taught in a Bible college last year up in northern Saskatchewan, and it was on the class on evangelism and discipleship. And part of that was, and if you've ever been through an equip night or an academy talking about your spiritual gifts, Martin's used the idea of shape. What's your spiritual shape? What's your shape as a person? What's your giftings? What's all these things? And so we took this, me and Martin taught the class together, and we took the class through this. And so some people not only is realizing that they want to reach people, but how has God wired them to do that? And there was this one paper that I got, and it was brilliant because they realized that they were gifted to open their home, to invite people around a table. They had the gift of hospitality. And the whole paper was, how can I be an evangelist through my gift of hospitality? I loved it because if you met this person, she was the most timid, quiet. She would never be the type of person to get on a stage here. She would never be the type of person to put a box on a street corner, stand with a megaphone, and call to people. But that doesn't mean God can't use her. Quite the opposite. Because there's going to be a person that resonates with her. Maybe you're sitting here saying, yeah, but I'm not that person. I don't have the gift of evangelism. Maybe not. But you know what? Some people are going to be turned off by that personality. Let me think about it like this. Before I got into ministry, I did a lot of time as managing in retail and sales. And I did about a year and a half in car sales. One of the most interesting and horrible experiences of my life. Let me just say something. As customers, you are your own worst enemies. I'm just going to throw that out there. But there was this thing. At one season, there was myself and another salesman, and Jed was from Ontario. He was in, doesn't matter where it doesn't, but he was very overly confident and one of those nail-in type of salespeople. And I was quite the opposite. I was much more of this, soft-hearted. At the time, I was very shy. The idea of doing something like this was not on a playing field for me. And here's the thing. This is what we notice, is that if I had the guy that came in and says, what's your lowest deal? What's your bottom deal? What do you, that very bulldozer personality, immediately is like, I'm going to introduce you to Jed. Because he was really good at turning that person around, and I just got bulldozed, and I would lose that deal. But if that soccer mom came in that's looking at a van and was unsure and really, or it doesn't have to be a soccer mom, I'm using that as a picture. I'm not trying to typecast anybody here, okay? Let me paint a picture for you, all right? Comes in and wants to do that. If Jed would have talked to her and do that because he was so forward-thinking that she would think, he's just trying to push me into this. But because I would come in and have this conversation and much more diplomatic, I'd be much more likely to make that sale. And I don't want to compare too much the idea of sharing our faith with sales, but the point of why I say that is just simply the fact that you're wired a particular way, and people will be magnetically attracted to your personality different than somebody else. Don't underestimate what God is going to do in you and through you. Just remember that. And here's the thing. A wide range of people. A wide range of people. That means there's a wide range of people that need to reach. There needs to be a wide range of people to reach them. And what I love, what happens about sitting at the table together is, this is what God does. This is what is his brilliance. He's the perfect artist, the masterpiece maker, the puppet master, if you will, is that when you're sitting around a table with other people, you've got a story and they've got a story, and God wants to intersect those stories together and bring his presence into the middle of that story and do something supernatural. You have a story. Your story is connected to the Gospels, connected to, as Paul says, the message. That's all you need. What's your story? Invite people in to that story. And here's the thing, like I said, there are people who are seeking. There are people who have questions. I could sit up here and tell stories, and I want to share two, because I think these two, again, are people that most times I think you might be scared to have interaction with. The first was a young gentleman. He grew up, he was born in India, he grew up in the UK, and when his parents moved to Canada, he came here. He had a nominal, non-practicing Hindu is basically where he was at. And so we started interacting, having coffee, and man, did he have questions. He was all over the map, and I just said, hey, Jagar, you need to focus. You need to start with Jesus. Look, there's all these great things, and I love having these conversations, and there's this intersection in our stories, but start with Jesus. Because here's the thing. If you seek out Jesus and you come to the conclusion in your own mind that he isn't who he says he was, that he isn't God, and he didn't accomplish what he came to accomplish and die and resurrect and ascend, then nothing's changed. But if you're on this journey, if you are honestly seeking, and you do come to this conclusion that he is God, and he did raise and ascend and redeem, that changes everything. That changes everything. And what was spectacular about that story was, as other people were intersecting into this, and it wasn't just me, but there was other people in our church and services and everything, that not only did he intellectually go, there's something to this story, because he gave him some resources, Case for Christ, and he's very intellectual that way, but he also sat here in a baptism service, and all of a sudden he had this pull, this urge to get baptized, and he couldn't figure out why, and it all started to click. Because not only did he intellectually see something to this story, but then he had this supernatural experience where God met him in that service, and he couldn't walk away from that experience as the same person. There was another one that I was sitting literally in the backstage here with a couple doing premarital counseling, and as I saw through their results and their tests, I realized that they maybe not a good match, and seemed like she was a Christian and he wasn't, and I was like, I don't know, and we sat down and realized that actually neither of them really had made that jump, but she was much more open and he was much more closed, and went through the conversation. Long story short, they realized that, yeah, if she is going to do that, and if they're going to be opposed in something that's so important, this might create some issues in their relationship. So I look at him and I say, Dan, let me ask you a question. What's the top 3 things that's stopping you from exploring a relationship with God? Notice that I didn't say, what's the 3 things stopping you from becoming a Christian? I'm just saying, what's the top 3 things that's stopping you from exploring a relationship with God? And he said, actually, it's just one. I said, really? What is it? It's the whole conversation about evolution. He's an angry atheist. He's like, I'm opposed to God, and I don't like this thing, I don't like this religion, and it's because as he went through the church, they gave him an ultimatum. You either believe in evolution and deny God, or you walk away from this conviction, trust God, and believe something that you just can't wrap your mind around. And I said, whoa, okay, wait a second. Let me just get this straight. The only thing stopping you from exploring a relationship with God is the conversation of evolution. I said, absolutely. I said, then who cares? Who cares? Start with Jesus. All that other stuff, it's going to work itself out. But I share this story with you because maybe you think to yourself, somebody from another religion, oh my goodness, we're so bipolarly opposed in our thinking that how could I have a conversation with that person? You don't know what God's doing in their life. You don't know that in that moment they may be seeking and you have the answers for them. It's not about bully tactics. You don't have to be the apologist. You don't have to be Ravi Zacharias. Let those guys do that. But just invite somebody to the table and start sharing a life together and think to yourself, like, how do our stories intersect? Or that angry atheist thinking, oh man, I don't want to get into a debate about evolution. He wasn't looking for that. He just needed permission to say it was okay to disagree and to explore. Because the reality is that, guess what? We're not binary as people. We're not ones and zeros. We're not all or nothing. The reality is that we're complicated. Myself included. The things that you wrestle with and what you believe, you don't have to have it all together, and neither do other people. But just giving them that freedom to go, you know what, just explore. What would it look like if you just explored a relationship? So let me say again, who are you saving a seat for? Who are you saving a seat for? A seat in this auditorium or a seat at your table? Again, say to the person beside you, who are you saving a seat for? All right, I let you guys get off for the first 2, but I need some conviction on this. Come on, who are you saving a seat for? Say to the person beside you. When thinking about asking questions as Jagar and Dan, you saw it on there on the Already in Church News. We have Alpha that's coming up. This is an amazing ministry that has seen, I don't know the numbers, but hundreds of thousands of people who have been introduced and have made decisions. And we're going to be hosting this here on Monday evenings. And you know what? If you're thinking to yourself, I'd love to know a first step to get my foot into the door, to figure out how I can be a part of that. Maybe you're not going to be the person who think, I'm not ready to take that step to actually share my faith with somebody. But you know what? Maybe you have a gift of service. Maybe you have a gift of hospitality. Maybe you're somebody who can work behind the scenes. We need all of those things. And the Alpha group, if we could have a team of people that can make that event just rocking, and these people coming in, inviting, realizing that this was all set up for me. Imagine what that would speak to that person who has got questions and who is seeking. Maybe you are that person who wants to start asking questions. You could be a table facilitator, whatever it is, and whatever on the side of that spectrum that is. Make sure to go to the info desk after. Actually, if you're doing it right now, I don't care. Get out of your seats right now. Go to the info desk and sign up for the Alpha. Because to me, that is more important than hearing what I have to say for the rest of this service. Because that's about people. That's about their souls. That's about the hope that we hold. See, people are seeking. People are asking questions. People are looking for hope. And the questions you have to give them is that hope. If you go back to the next slide, Paul did this. He entered their world. They entered their world. See, it isn't just about bringing people in, and that's a huge part of it. Like I said, we're talking about fall kickoff, but again, it's about entering their world and walking life together with them. I'm going to motor through some of these stories, but I want to connect these things with you guys because it is about real life and stories. Before we went into ministry, I was volunteering with my youth group in the area that the church I went to, and I led a small group of guys that my youth pastor worked with, said probably the small group from hell. Like these guys, they push your buttons. They figure out every way to scuttle a small group. They figure out every way to get under your skin, to push your buttons. I went through 4 co-leaders with these small group guys. But because I'm French-Italian, I was too stubborn to quit. Now, I would love to say it was perseverance. I would love to say that I had a high, but no, it was just sheer stubbornness. I'm not going to let you win. But God used that. And because of the simple fact that I stuck it out with these guys, 9 times out of 10, our small group time was a waste of time, at least in my mind. Because we didn't have good conversations. We didn't talk about Jesus. Most of the time it was just pulling teeth to get them to focus. But they were testing me. They were testing me. But you know what spoke volumes? That I stuck it out, that I was there for them, that I played road hockey with them, that I was sharing my life with them. And when the rubber hit the road and when the poop hit the fan in their life, who was the person they called? It was me. Because I had built that attachment with them. I had built that trust with them. I was willing to invite them to the table, or even better, sit at their table of their life and to share the mess together. Maybe that's a step for you in thinking about the impact of attachment. You want to know a great step of that? Join a house church. Get in a group. For 2 reasons. One, for yourself. Maybe you've been walking this life and journey in isolation. You've been doing it for too long. Thinking about wanting to do this, you can't do this on your own. You need a team around you. You need people with you. Doing life together. Join a house church. Guess what? Here's a sign-up sheet for that out at the info desk. But also, how amazing is it when you're interacting with somebody and they're looking for community, you go, you know what? I go to this thing called the house church. Don't try and hide what you do. That's hard. We kind of hang out and debate. No. Here's the thing. What I've noticed over time, and even conversations I had with other people, is you would be surprised how open people are to prayer, to the things of God, in a genuine community. Because they want it. They do. They're just not sure what steps to take. But if you join a house church, man, if that door opens, what an easy way to go in. So again, who are you saving a seat for? Who are you saving a seat for here? Who are you saving a seat for at your table? Who are you saving a seat for in your house church? So say to the person beside you with conviction, who are you saving a seat for? You see a theme going on here? It doesn't need to be hard. God is simply looking for people who are willing And let's look at this last thing, what Paul says. Notice this last line. I didn't just want to talk about it. It wasn't just about theory. Oh, I love the messages. I love the cross. I love the gospel. I love Jesus. I love what it does in my life. I just love. But it's not just about talking about it. I wanted to be in on it. Maybe that resonates with you to think that, yeah, the message impacted your life and you just, man, it is an amazing thing, isn't it? An amazing thing, the message of hope. The amazing thing, the message that we have. The amazing thing that what God's done in our life. Can I get an amen for that? But Paul's saying is here, his desire was he just didn't want to just talk about it. He was a communicator. He wanted to be in the middle of it. He said, I didn't just come with words, but we shared. He said, I came with power, but he also talks about, I shared our lives together. We shared our lives together. See, it is when the church is who they are supposed to be and where they already are. That's the power. I remember when I was in retail and I was managing this small little grocery store, the same thing even when I went into the management in Canadian Tire, all these people just like, and age-wise, I'm like 21, 22 years old. Like, I got no life experience at all. People are coming to me like in tears, sharing their life problems. And I'm just like, okay, wait a second. Do I have like sucker tattooed on my forehead? Like, I can't figure out what it is. Why are these people that are like double my age coming to me looking for life advice? Like, I'm 22 years old. What do I know? But here's the thing. There was something about me and the hope that I carried that drew these people like flies to a fly paper. There was something to that. Let me share another one because I've started with my friend Peter, but I've shared some stories about myself. And again, you might think, yeah, but that's you, Pastor Drake. You've been equipped to do that, and you're a pastor. My mom, if anybody has ever met my mom, she's been at the info desk. She's probably one of the most shy, timid people. Literally, I was having a conversation, and she was a part of one of our prayer and prophecy nights, and we had a guest come in, and my mom was really dealing with this ailment, and again, she was not a person to do this, but I said, who wants to be the guinea pig? And she shot her hand up. She came out, she got prayed for, she got healed. Well, we were at a barbecue for a pastor in the area that was going off to Ontario, and we're saying goodbye, and my mom was there, and I'm not sure why she was there, it doesn't matter, but that pastor that prayed over her was there, and I said, Mom, you need to go tell him that it's stuck. Because how many times you pray for somebody, and you think, man, I wonder how that person's doing. I wonder if you don't get the follow-up. So you need to go tell him. He's like, I don't know, I don't want to, I'm not asking her to like save this person as a pastor, but she's like, no, I don't really. So I said, okay, I'll go with you. How will that help, right? Like, and it's funny because as a kid, that was me. I'm the one who's, behind my mom going, I'm talking to a stranger. Even as like a young adult, I was like, hey, go get a bottle of water from a vendor. I'm like, nope, that's a stranger. I don't want to, like, that's the type of personality I was at. And my mom, so going up to the pastor, talking to them, and I'm just like, hey, my mom wants to share something with you. And she literally did. Like, she must have been like, felt like she's like the 5-year-old now. And just doing like, she literally tucked her body in to me, and it was like this physical protection for her. This is my mom. And she's now interacting with this lady at work who has come to her and is sharing with her she's suffering from cancer. And as the story progresses, they don't interact at all anywhere outside of work. She comes into work, into my mom's, like my mom is a produce manager in a grocery store, and she comes into work and seeks out my mom to give her updates. And is going like, I need to share with somebody the struggle that I'm going through. And this person sees something in my mother, not because she's an energetic, outgoing extrovert, but because there's hope. She carries something that this person recognizes. And I'm going to share my struggles with this complete stranger, and my mom has been able to walk with this person. Let me challenge you something. Guess who's the outreach pastor in this church? Who's the outreach pastor in this church? You are. Notice we have nobody on our website that says pastor of outreach? Because it's about equipping the saints. You're the outreach pastor. You're the people that God has called up. The people who are in the marketplaces. I love it like this. When Peter sees, all the 3,000 get saved and baptized. What happens? After a season of them going, they get dispersed and they go all across the Roman Empire. We hear stories about Peter, we hear stories about Paul. The reality is that the seeds were being planted because these 3,000 who experienced something supernatural got dispersed out of Jerusalem all across the Roman Empire. Think about the verse like this: as you go, make disciples in your everyday life, in the marketplace, with your friends. Don't be a jerk about it. Don't be weird about it, but just invite people to the table asking, who am I saving a seat for? So again, one last time, who are you saving a seat for? Say to the person beside you with real conviction, who are you saving a seat for? See, it's our neighbors, our friends, our family, the seeker, the person who shows up on a Sunday morning who fills out a Connect card. It's people. It's people that we're inviting to come to the table. And let me just close with this story, the story of my neighbors. When I was a kid, and I come from the East Coast, and I'm a military kid, so I'm all over the thing, but a big portion of my family lives in Montreal. And for a season, my grandfather and all his brothers and sisters, they all basically built houses, as they went out from their mother's, my great-grandmother, her house. And so they basically own the street. And in that type of culture, and it was like porches. Decks weren't a thing. It was porches. You sat out there, you had conversations, you could walk into doors. And it was just this kind of open thing. And as we got to the West and as things had progressed, there's a different culture here. And it's like, nobody talks to their neighbors. Now, I'm not going to pressure you to start knocking on doors or anything like that. But it was funny because, as you see people come and go and move out, and that's part of it is that every 5 years, it seems like people cycle through neighborhoods. Right? And it's so hard to get to know people. And this couple moves in, and they have 2 girls, and they're basically the same age as our boys, and they start playing, and so we go over and say, well, we need to talk to them before we can invite them over, and so they feel comfortable, and they know who we are, and so we start having a conversation, and what they said to us is oh my goodness, finally neighbors who will talk to us. And I just thought, well, that was an interesting thing to say. They had this desire, I want to actually have a friendship with my neighbors. And we thought, our kids hang out together. We need to start, let's have a supper together. You know how it is trying to schedule things. Fans say, no, we're putting in the calendar. Let's have a supper together. Let's get together. Let's get our kids together. Let them play together. We're neighbors, for goodness sakes. Why wouldn't we have a meal together? And so we invited them out to our table. And here's what's crazy. We're sitting down. We're having a meal. We're just talking about life. And the wife looks at me and says, we really need to go to church. I was like, okay. I wasn't going to bring that up at all because, we're just don't want to be awkward about it. You already know I'm a pastor. It's probably already a little bit uncomfortable. And, but I already know some things. There was that. She liked our Facebook page and started stalking us. And I was just like, I don't know if you know that I know that, but whatever. But I just thought, I want to build a relationship with these people. These are my neighbors. I don't have an agenda in mind. I just want to share life together, sit down at the table together, have our lives intersect, and see what God's going to do. And it was just insane because they were just you know what? It's funny. They came from BC, and they said, it seems like we can't find any friends that don't want to do drugs. I was she's all our friends in BC didn't smoke pot, but we come to Alberta, and they all want to smoke pot. She's that's a little weird, don't you think? And I said, well, I don't know. But they're always trying to make these connections. They're going somewhere, and they're you know what? I don't want to live that life anymore. She's I'm in my 40s. Why am I going over and people just want to get drunk and smoke weed? And, I got kids, and, I'm done with this. I want, a normal life. And what happened was this. So I got it. I'm okay, well, where's this question coming from? She goes, and they said this. They go to me, it's and we want to go to an Alliance church. And I go, well, that's funny because I pastor an Alliance church. I can't make this up. I couldn't have, set this up any better. And let me just say this. That never happens, okay? Maybe God will do it. I don't know. But it was just, I was in the moment going okay, all right, God. You couldn't be more obvious that this is a God moment, right? It's just smack dab in the face. If I didn't take opportunity, God's really? Really? Come on. And I said, well, okay, why an Alliance church? She goes, well, we spent some time in Banff, and basically the Alliance Church from Canmore did this special Christmas service. Like they go to church on Christmas and Easter, and they did this special Christmas service in Banff, and we just felt something there. And ever since then, we've been wanting that again. God took that moment, they took that risk. Canmore Alliance Church is a part of this story. They get to the Edmonton area, we have supper, and they're thinking to themselves, they're thinking, man, we'd love to go to an Alliance Church. And God put them as neighbors to an Alliance pastor. Like, I'm sorry that God has a sense of humor, okay? Like, and we're sitting, and they just flat out says, we want to go to church. I said, well, you can come to our church. You're like, just come to our church. Like, simple as that. Like, it was just, and then we had a conversation about it, and what type of church we were, and well, I work every other Sunday. I'm like, that's okay. Like, breaking down the walls, sharing life together. And because we literally were, and literally sitting, this conversation is happening around our kitchen table. And I'll invite the band up. I'm going to pray for you guys. Maybe for some of you, it's fear. And let me say this. God has shaped me differently, but again, I was not a person that would naturally get up and do public speaking, but there's still moments where, I said this to Martin, that I know when there's a word of prophecy or we have open heavens or things like that I need to share it, and it's not just my, personality that's going to do it, is when I get so nervous that I want to throw up. Like literally I'm sitting in the rows going, God's like, all right, you need to share this, and I'm going like, oh, I'm going to vomit. Like, I don't want to do it. Like, no, can't. And I'm getting, like, I can do this day in, day out, do this message. I've gone past that point. Like, I'm still nervous prepping and those type of things. But then when it comes to the word of prophecy and the sharing that, I get sick to my stomach because I know it's important. And if you get to that place, you're getting knots in your stomach and you're getting fearful about this fact that maybe God's calling you. And maybe it's even as, it's that obvious moment, that smack in the face. He wants to share something or intersect in their life. And you just get sick to your stomach. Don't view that as a reason to run, but instead a reason to pray, a reason to find courage, the reason to look inside of you, of that presence that's been enveloped and filling into you, going, all right, God, how do I release this? I love how the words of Isaiah said, I am willing, send me. God isn't looking for a person who has all the right answers, all the right actions. Most likely you're going to screw up some people in the process. But it's okay because you're screwed up too. So we're all screwed up. It's okay. God will fix it. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. He's just looking for people saying, I'm willing, send me. I want you guys to bow your heads. And maybe this is resonating. Maybe you're freaking out right now because I'm about to ask. I didn't plan this. I just feel really compelled to do this right now. Nobody else looking around. I want you to literally take a stand. And God is asking this question. Jesus goes, the harvest is plenty, but the workers are few. Let's pray for workers. And the book of Isaiah says, who shall I send? And Isaiah says, send me. Maybe you're already doing it, but you need a refresher on this. I'm going to ask you, God is asking this question now, who shall I send? And if you are that person who is going to take that challenge, not worrying about the details of what that looks like, not worrying about I'm not the right person or I'm not equipped, not worrying about how that gifting is going to happen, but just simply in this action, all you are saying is, God, I am willing, use me as you will. Because here's the thing, God knows how you're wired because he made you. He's not going to make you do something you hate. He's not going to put you in danger. He's going to use you the way you're wired. And here's the thing, when you go through those moments, how exhilarating it's going to be used for his kingdom and his hope. So again, with all of that, God is saying, who shall I send? If you are that person right here, right now, who's saying, Lord, send me, stand up. Everybody with bowing their head. I see you there. If you were that person, person, God is simply asking the question, who shall I send? Who is willing to be used? Who is willing to be formed? Who is willing to be taught? Who is willing to be equipped? Who is willing to be trained? God is saying, who shall I send? And you are saying, send me, stand now. All right, we're going to get everybody else to stand up. I want to pray for you, for every one of you. As we close off this service, Holy Spirit, as you have filled us up today, give us the courage to break down that door, to open that door and let the floodgates go into every area of our life, in the areas that you have placed us in the city, and the people's lives that you have placed. Use us. As people have stood up to give this sense of unity and this call, give them the courage, give them the blessing, give them the anointing, as you have placed in places to be a light, to be a hope, not worrying about what they're going to say, what they're going to do, but simply this: I am willing, use me. And give them eyes to see and ears to hear, of knowing when and what they should do in that moment, like the apostles did as they were before the Sanhedrin and they were brought forward and they were on trial. And they said, what are we going to say? He said, do not worry about the words. Jesus says, when you are on that, the Holy Spirit will give you the words to say. Holy Spirit, empower these people. Fill them up. Give them the power to deliver, the words to speak, the actions to be done, and to be carriers of hope, that people will be drawn to them. People will be asking them questions. People will be asking them to show up to their church. But the only thing that's stopping them, they don't know what to wear, how to act, and they can break down those walls so they would be flooding this church, hearing the gospel of hope. Anoint them, fill them up, empower them, equip them, Holy Spirit. Come upon your people, come upon your messengers. Fill them from head right now and come down to their toes. Put out your hands and receive that right now. And as we worship, as we close today, remember that. Again, don't forget, there are sign-up sheets for real life action. Sign up for Alpha. Sign up for House Church. Fill out a card at the info desk if you don't know what that next step is, and we'll help you. Don't take a wasted opportunity.